This episode of Access to the Arts has been made possible through the support of First Bank Richmond, with 8 locations in Wayne County to serve you. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together. Hi, I'm Eric. Thanks for joining me on this month's Access to the Arts. Coming up, Melinda Wilson has another of our artist spotlights, and another of my conversations from Pottery Palooza will be on the way on this month's Access to the Arts. We open this month's show with John Cook from Civic Hall Performing Arts Center. John, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, glad to do it. Talk a little bit about what your season has been like so far.
All righty. We opened with Texas Tenors. They were here for the 4th time.
Did they bring their entourage with them? They travel well.
They do travel well. They're very popular here. All the people in Richmond, plus the people that follow them around, really enjoy what their production is. They're super nice guys. They're really great singers, and the show itself is it's put together super well. So the crowd's with them the whole way through it. That's what's always, I think, really nice about their production or their performances, that people are involved and they want to see them again. And so as people are leaving, they're always asking, are you bringing them back? When are they coming back? So that's always a positive thing to hear from everybody as they're exiting the Civic Hall. Mm-hmm. And then our second show was a little bit different than we've had in recent years. It was a bluegrass band. Right. And their name is Henhouse Prowlers. They're talented musicians, and the people that were there, it was a smaller crowd, but the people that were there really, really appreciated them. We've had people come out of Civic Hall and say it was the best show we've had. So, as long as we're entertaining the people that are coming and that we're getting that kind of response, then we feel like we're on the right track as far as programming that we're bringing into Civic Hall for the regional community and everybody that's the season ticket holders and whatnot. But I thought they were really, really good.
Talk about what the draw is like, because you mentioned regional. Mm-hmm. Talk about where your audience actually does come from.
Most of the audience, like our season ticket holders, right, are local. Richmond, Centerville, maybe Connorsville, possibly Cambridge City, but maybe Fountain City. But it's a pretty tight area for your main audience. Wayne County-ish for the most part. I know Connorsville is not Wayne County, but for the most part, yeah, the Wayne County folks. We do have some just across the state line in Preble County, I believe. Mm-hmm. And so we have people that are coming from Ohio, Eaton, those kinds of places that are just across the state line. But the bulk are from the Richmond greater area, I guess.
When you look at what your crowds were like pre-pandemic to now, has Civic Hall been able to come back? Has the audience come back to Civic Hall the way they were there previously?
Yeah, no, that's not happening. Not yet.
Okay.
So we're trying to figure that out. As far as we're probably down 200 from what we were averaging normally prior to COVID.
Okay.
And there's all kinds of things that could be playing into that, because the productions themselves, we believe, are the same level of quality and variety, and we still get the same kind of feedback from the people that are in the audience and whatnot when they're leaving, or when, as far as any kind of conversations that we have, or if they call and talk to us, or however that would be. It's all still very positive. It's just that it hasn't rebounded as quickly or the way that we had hoped it would. Still optimistic that, we're still selling individual tickets, but just the way that we're structured at Civic Hall, most of it is sustained through the season ticket holder. Okay. And then adding the individual tickets on top of that, right. It's like a bonus. And so we'd like to build that back up so we could get at least another 150 into our season ticket subscription. And then I think we'd feel comfortable again where, things would be where they were kind of rolling right along before COVID. So, again, we're thinking that next season, and again, we're not that far out of COVID. I mean, we are, but we're not.
You're still having people get it, and you're still having people feel uncomfortable in some venues. And I think there are a number of the arts organizations that are still feeling some of the same things.
Yes. Well, and in most cases, and I know that there's some in the local area that are doing well, but in most cases, I speak, so like I go to a convention or a conference, and there's several conferences around the country. But all the same responses are coming from performing arts directors like me from around the Midwest, because I go to the regional Midwest conference, and they're having the same struggles where people are not coming back, and I guess it makes me feel better, but
but you're still concerned about your organization.
Sure. But they're still experiencing the same types of things that we are, and so there's some kind of solace in that to know that it's not just us, or it's not something that we're doing at Civic Hall that is affecting that in a negative way. But still, you'd like to have more people sitting in the seats and coming to the performances. So that's where we are. But at least that's the response from people that I've talked to in Indiana that have venues our size, or Wisconsin, Illinois, in Ohio, and occasionally too. They're going to be like, for example, our Texas Tenor Show was pretty well attended, but in our past 3 performances that they'd been here, they'd sell out. Okay. We were not sold out. It's still the largest crowd we've had. The only show, we've had one show since COVID that sold out, and it was a particular group. I don't know if we want to talk about that, but they had their own following as well. So they had a big social media following. So they kind of generate that themselves too and bring people with them. So they were selling a lot of individual tickets.
As we're into this holiday season and people are looking at maybe how to spend their money on family type of things, you've got a couple of shows after the first of the year that are really focused on family, even to a certain extent, maybe changing the time and how things are presented. I know one of those is Alan Harris presents Cross That River. Talk a little bit about that.
That show, I think, is, I'm excited for that show. Well, I'm excited for all our shows, but that show in particular we're doing in February during Black History Month. We're going to do it on a Friday so that we can also do a kids show in the afternoon. So we're going to present it to, grades K or 4 through 8. They can bring their classes and see this presentation. It's the premise of the show is the escape of a black slave from New Orleans, and he escapes into Texas to become a black cowboy. And he was one of the first black cowboys on record that there was documentation. And so it's fact with some fiction built in to move the storyline. But the performer himself is related to the actual black cowboy. So there's that connection. And he's a musician out of New York, Alan Harris. He's the one that created the whole story based on that.
Nice.
So he is a great singer and plays guitar. He basically narrates through this, and then all his other musicians that are surrounding him on stage, who are all playing instruments, also sing or become actors in his production. So it's very unique. They play people that he encounters in his trial to escape, and then his process into becoming a black cowboy, and people that he meets in his life and how they've helped him along his journey. And it's actually a very positive, uplifting story,
Yeah.
even through this, this horrible experience that this man has had to endure. I think the way he presents it, it's almost uplifting, in a strange sort of way. And he presents it because, he's optimistic about, his life, and what he's been able to accomplish and achieve. And then we also were bringing in Levi and Catherine Coffenhouse. They're partnering with us, and they're bringing in an actor who plays Levi Coffin.
Okay.
And he's basically the warm-up act. So before the show starts, he's going to give his history, his background on the Underground Railroad and how it's influenced through Wayne County. And it was basically the Grand Central Station of the Underground Railroad in the late 1800s. And he talks about why he did it, why he felt passionate about doing it for the African Americans and people that were trying to, find a better life. And so he explains what his part of that Underground Railroad is, and then we move into the Alan Harris presentation. So I think it's going to be really a moving and great experience for everybody, whether it's, kids, adults,
It's a Friday night show.
Friday.
Tickets are available. Civichall.com is where people can go to
Right.
get information. Different being a Friday night,
Yeah.
being a family show, so people can purchase tickets now for that particular
yeah.
show.
Yeah.
The next show that you have coming in that we'll talk about next month in Access to the Arts is called Artrageous.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to hearing about that. We'll talk to you again next month for
Awesome.
Access to the Arts. Thanks for watching Access to the Arts and my conversation with John. We're going to hear from Melinda Wilson after we take a break.
Hello, I'm John Foss, Executive Director of Richmond Civic Theater. Founded in 1941, RCT is the premier live theater organization in Richmond, Indiana. Our productions are performed and produced locally just for you. Auditions are announced several times throughout the season, and we are always looking for new volunteers on and off stage. For more information about how you can get involved, visit our website at gorct.org and follow us on Facebook.
Our board of directors, officers, and the rest of the First Bank Richmond family want to wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas.
Hello and welcome to Artist Spotlight. I'm Melinda Wilson and I have a special guest today, and we're with Jean Felmy. Welcome, Jean.
Thank you.
I am so glad I got to meet you the other day.
Yes, I'm
Just-
glad.
Just in time to bring you on the show.
Yep. I appreciate it.
Yes, definitely. So I would like to know what got you started in the art world.
Well, I started pretty young as a kid. My mother was always painting or creating something, so I was exposed to it all the time. And just kept at it, and although my instructors didn't always appreciate my creative tendencies.
And what exactly were those?
Let's just say coloring outside the lines.
Okay.
And throwing paint at the paper and things
Okay.
like that at a young age when, you were supposed to behave yourself.
And you're supposed to stay in the lines, right? So you have had this experience then for several years?
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
since before kindergarten.
Oh, wow. It's so wonderful that you got to discover your gifts at that young age.
Yes, and I worked I did biological illustration at Earlham for a few years.
Okay.
Studied forestry, and then I did end up for 10 years of computer graphics. So I learned a lot about composition and
Sure.
colors. And
Was that also at Earlham?
that was after I was working. That was with the Forest Service.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Okay.
It was great.
So what mediums do you use then?
I started out pretty much with pencil, pen and ink, back when they used quill pens and India ink.
Oh, wow. You don't hear that much very often.
Not anymore, no. And then a lot of acrylic. I took a break with the computer graphics. It was a bit much for the hands.
Sure.
And then watercolor. I started took some classes, a lot of classes and workshops, and
Okay.
it was a very difficult medium, but that's what I favor now.
And that's also what your mother, Venna Werner, favors as
Yes.
well, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We create a lot of masterpieces together.
What a fun experience to be able to do art with your mother.
Yes.
Those are memories that you will always have, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are what they call priceless moments.
It is.
Yes.
It is. We're documenting a lot of it.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I worked several years with my mother as well, and it's just means a lot. It really does. So, do you ever have creative block? And if you do, what do you do to overcome that?
Okay, so I brought a prop.
Oh, there you go.
This is how I start out. With certain colors, you do a gradient blend
Okay.
and start just feeling the colors, the paint, and then maybe splattering. You can splatter, spray,
Okay.
and blow on it, and you'll start to see something forming, a flower, an animal, or many times just a really nice piece of scrap paper.
Oh, sure.
But
Yes.
that's what I go back to the basics and just practice some of the beginner intro things to get me back into the feel of it.
Sure. That's very interesting. You know, as you start seeing that image come forth, you bring it to life.
Yes.
And I'm sure when you share that with those who purchase your paintings, it means so much more to them as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I do a lot of natural, bright colors are
Okay.
my thing. Feel good, happy.
Well, I can tell by your outfit, you just enjoy happiness.
I do.
Yeah. And actually, we both do, right?
Yes. I want people to feel good and, joy when they see my paintings.
Exactly. So do you have a favorite style that you lean towards?
I would say experiment between a few, the more precise animals in a
Okay.
tree or running across the yard, or just a wild flower with a hummingbird coming in and splatter and spray.
Okay.
So those are kind of my favorites.
Yeah, they sound beautiful. So do you have what you would call a bucket list art piece that you would love to do at some point?
I have really been intrigued with doing abstract.
Oh, okay.
And I would most likely go back to acrylic or oil. I've never painted in oil, but when I have tried it, I start seeing something,
Right.
and I go getting into all the details again, and before you know it, it's not an abstract painting, it's
Right.
a tree.
Exactly.
So that is something I'd really like to learn how to do.
So are you interested more in the poured acrylic or more the blade acrylic style?
I have never poured acrylic.
Okay.
I've got some friends who do it, so I'm exposed to it, and it is beautiful. But I would do both, but I think I'd start with painting.
Okay, all right. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we want to thank all of you for joining us for Artist Spotlight. Look forward to seeing you again.
A spark, an invitation into the world of the unknown. It moves us to change, to grow. It asks us to dream bigger. An idea is better shared. It ignites us, and we make each other bright. We can do great things together.
Hi, welcome back to Access to the Arts. We are spending some time out in the air. It is Pottery Palooza there where we are recording these sessions live. Always happens in September, draws in some interesting people, some great artwork, and I'm having a chance to spend some time with Lynn. Lynn, thanks for talking to me.
Not a problem.
Where are you from and how did you get started in pottery?
I am from the Dayton area, a little town called Medway. Most people don't hear of it. And got started in pottery. Well, my first touch of clay, of course, was maybe in elementary school.
Sure.
Most of us do.
We all got a little bit dirty at that
And then,
time.
you know, life happens, and at the age of 50, I was diagnosed with diabetes, and that was going to be the rest of my life. And I thought to myself, I need to strike something off my bucket list, and I took a class, and that's all it took. Got my hands in that mud. It took me, I think, 12 weeks before I could actually make a piece.
Okay.
Because it turns out I was doing it backwards. I was doing it like a left-handed person would. There's a rotation on the wheel, and your hands have to be in a certain spot. Mine were on the opposite side, and that's why I was struggling. As soon as they put my hands where they were supposed to be, I've been making pots ever since.
What are some of your favorite items to make, and what is your inspiration?
My favorite items to make are bowls. I like to make large bowls. I make big bowls.
Okay.
I love to make big bowls.
Why?
Because bowls can be utilized in so many ways. We eat from bowls, we store in bowls, we decorate with bowls, we hang bowls on our counters and kitchens and walls. I have bowls all over my house. I give bowls away, I sell bowls, I just love bowls. And they're easy to make to me. My inspiration?
And I ask because I noticed in looking at some of your work, I see a lot of, particularly farm animals, a lot of bunnies.
A lot of bunnies, a lot of farm animals.
Of bunnies.
I'm an animal lover, for one thing.
Okay.
But I live in farm country. Farm country, farm animals, it kind of went together. And I started doing the farm animals, I'd say, 8 years ago. And haven't been able to stop. I've tried to stop, but people keep demanding them, so I keep making them, you know? I have other ideas in mind I will eventually slowly shift into, but somehow incorporate the farm animals. Yes.
What do you make most? I know you said you make a lot of bowls, but what other types of pottery do you make?
I love to make tumblers, coffee cups. Plates and platters are one of my favorites, in addition to the bowls, because plates and platters, they're necessary, they're functional, and yet they're artwork. You hang them on your wall, you get ready to serve, you take them off the wall, put that roast on there, bring it to the table. My favorite thing, we just had a family reunion. I love going to my family reunions because every year I bring my meal, my contribution to the meal, in one of my bowls or on one of my platters. And all my relatives are like, oh. And it just makes my heart swell. And then a lot of times I hand it to one of my relatives to take home.
Oh, nice.
I know, right?
You're here representing the Cornell Studio. Tell me about the Cornell Studio.
Cornell Studio, we are on North Dixie in Dayton, Ohio. The young lady that owns it has probably owned it now for about 15 years. And we teach classes there. We sell all the supplies needed to make those lovely bowls and platters. We have multiple types of clay, tools, glazes, the raw materials to make tools or not to make the tools, to make the glazes. And I believe Cornell's has been around the Dayton area for 40 plus years. It was originally owned by another couple by the name of Cornell, and she just didn't switch the name when she purchased it. So all the local potters in the schools, like I said, mostly come to us. We are that well known.
You mentioned schools. Talk about the young people that you see coming up. I know there's a couple of young people, one from Wittenberg, one from Miami. You mentioned your granddaughter. Talk about young people getting into it and what that does for you and how you interact with them.
Love working with kids and the clay. They have no inhibitions. They create. And they don't care what they create. This is a dinosaur. Okay, I see a round ball, but this is a dinosaur. And yay, way to go, Joey. You know, so they don't have the inhibitions that a lot of adults do. They'll make these little bowls or these little pinch pots or little airplanes, or my granddaughter tried to make a Barbie doll the other night. You know, it sort of looks like a Barbie doll. But to see the joy in their faces, to know that they're just getting down into it, it just amazes me. And when I think of the ones that are going to stay with it, you know, I wish as much fun as I have at this, if I like to think of where I might be today had I started playing in clay when I graduated high school. If I'd have studied that in college and moved on with it, yeah, I'd be famous.
You mentioned working with, before we started this conversation, mentioned working with some of the Girl Scout troops. I didn't realize that there was a badge that they could get for pottery in Girl Scouts.
There is a badge for pottery. There's all kinds of badges in Girl Scouts, but I am going to go in with my clay and I will show them how to make simple little pinch pots, maybe little sculptures. You know, they're going to learn about clay, where clay comes from, decomposed rock. You know, it's basically mud. And they're going to be fascinated, and they are going to create, and they get to keep their pieces. I will take them and put them in the kiln, and then I'll probably have them put some color on them first, and I'll just put a glaze on them after the fact, return them back to them, and the looks on their faces when they see that completed piece makes it so worth it. I have an awesome Girl Scout troop leader for my granddaughter and have met several others lately. So I'll be helping them out with their badges too.
If people want to see some of your work, how can they do that?
Unfortunately, since COVID, I haven't been out doing a lot of shows lately between working full-time and raising an 8-year-old and Girl Scouts and coaching soccer. That's about to change this year.
Okay.
Because I finally got it worked out. There's certain days of the week my husband knows, leave her alone, she's down in her studio. I have a home studio.
Nice.
Most of the time. But I'll be down in the studio thinking to myself, oh, there's a load of laundry I should probably get going. So then I stop what I'm doing and I go get the laundry going. And then I get back to what I'm doing and I'm like, oh, I should probably go up and start dinner, you know, but that's gonna stop this year. I am gonna spend at least 8 hours, 3 days a week in my studio.
Okay.
Somehow.
So when we see you next year.
Next year, I'll be able to tell you where you can find my work.
All right. Lynn from Cornell Studio in Dayton, thank you very much for the time.
It was a joy. You're a pleasure.
Thank you.
I love you.
Thanks to John Cook for being part of this month's show. Also, my appreciation to Melinda Wilson for being a host of the Artist Spotlight section. Thanks for watching this Access to the Arts. As always, I wish you well. This episode of Access to the Arts has been made possible through the support of First Bank Richmond, with 8 locations in Wayne County to serve you. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together.